podcast, episode number 31. You join us today in a sort of lounge scenario. Roddy and I've come down to London to see Roddy, and well, not specifically to see Roddy, but okay. But here we are. We're both on the floor. We're both a couple of pints deep, and we're both ready and raring to go for this particular episode, where we decided that what we would do is talk about our favourite childhood film. Well, not favourite childhood films. There's an important distinction here, which is we're going for childhood films that shaped us or shaped our film tastes rather than our favourite childhood films themselves. This is the kind of topic you can do when you're pints deep, as we are. So yeah, this is formative. I think formative films are things that sit with everyone. You know, everyone remembers the films which struck them the most from the early days, and filmmakers often cite, you know, the film that made them love cinema, and this is essentially that. So our incredibly important opinions, which turned us into the human beings that we are.
Yeah, you know, think as, you know, the trilogy, you know, like Human Centipede, things like that. You know, any films that spring to mind when you think films you watched as a child.
As a child, which really moulded you into the people that we are. Yeah. These gave us the humanity, the morals, which we have today, which might explain a lot.
Yes.
But please enjoy our selection, because there are some absolute bangers included. My 1 to 5 is not necessarily in a definitive order of like 5th most influential to 1st most influential.
No, my 1 to 7 is categorised.
Okay, you've got 7. Yeah, we're doing top 5, but we both have lots of honourable mentions.
Yes.
And yeah, like a scale doesn't really make sense because they're the most childhoody. Like that doesn't really make any sense. So let's dive in. Let's start with your honourable mentions, Roddy. What have you got on that category?
Yeah. So if I had my way, these would actually be the only ones on my list at all. But I thought, you know, I come on this podcast, you know, fairly regularly, and I think I've said these films, all 3 of these films, maybe every single time, and I thought it was probably time to give them a rest and talk about some other films. So my honourable mentions are Chicken Little, which, as you know, I only really massively value the film because it's got a really good game behind it. It's a really good game, and you know the film's fine, it's whatever, but the game is really good. Like there's a great section where you throw there's like a dodgeball bit, and then in the next film, and Dom actually got really angry at me before we filmed this.
I don't know about angry.
He was like scarily furious. It was actually his heat that cooked the pizza that we ate. It Lion King 1.5, which it's objectively better than the first Lion King.
Okay,
but
well, that's a strong statement.
Well, and now we're back to it. We'll skip over that, and then Cars. So this probably would have been my number 1. As I think I've mentioned before, I used to know all the words to Cars, and I collected loads of Cars toys. So you know, massively formative for me. And now I drive a car.
Didn't know that's where you were going. Yes, I'd say. Yeah. Have you ever seen Paying Taxes, the movie? Because I appear to be so enamoured by it that it's my life now.
Yeah, Wolf of Wall Street, baby.
No, listen, I love your love for Lion King 1.5.
Well.
I just think the statement, it's objectively better than Lion King, is, how do I put it? Balderdash. I have more, traditionally I have more honourable mentions than is entirely necessary, but I'm going to reel them off now very, very quickly before we get into the proper list. So my honourable mentions for my childhood films that shaped me are Kung Fu Panda. Score-wise, animation, characters, they're all there. It's undeniably fantastic. It is just Kill Bill with animals, but who cares?
The Wish Your Finger Hold.
The Wish Your Finger Hold. Oh, you know the one. The Rob Zemeckis A Christmas Carol, which I brought up last time when we did our animated films. There's something about it which I for me, tradition is to watch, listen to, engage with a horror story or like a ghost story on Christmas Eve. And I think it was the Rob Zemeckis Christmas Carol which made me do that. We saw it around Christmas time, and it gave me nightmares up until Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day came, and I enjoyed it so much because it felt like I got to the brighter side of Christmas, that I never had that dream again. And that really means something to me, which is bizarre and strange. But that's what this is about.
What horror film are you going to watch this Christmas time?
So I'm really, really feeling like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes Christmas. No, there was an adaptation that Mark Gatiss did last Christmas with Kit Harington about a mummy character on Christmas Eve, and that was wonderful. There's also a version of A Christmas Carol with Stephen Graham, which is really properly like dark and dingy, and I loved that so much. I thought it was fabulous. Monsters vs. Aliens is another honourable mention.
That's a good one.
We all love Seth Rogen and his blob voice. Just good fun. Well-natured good fun. The only reason these are in this, and the reason I remembered is because you mentioned them before, but both Nanny McPhee and Nanny McPhee and The Big Bang were really formative films for me as a kid.
Yep. Made me forever scared of growing a wart. Sorry if anyone
Yeah,
has
right.
a wart,
It
but
just made it seem like facial features like that would just literally be the end of your life, and only if you were magic could you reverse them. Which is an interesting message, but I think the point of the films is that the kids got better, so the face got nicer. It's a strange way of doing it, and now that I think about it, that like objective beauty is applied to a human being because kids get better.
Yeah, warts are universally ugly and the worst. Yeah, right.
Yeah, she turns up and she's just universally. Everyone thinks what a minger, and by the end of the film, she's back to looking like wonderful Emma Thompson again. And goes, "Oh, wonderful." I didn't think of it like that. Now I'm slightly more skeptical. They're both really funny though, and like they both have the heart in like really good places, which I like. Mr. Bean's Holiday is undeniable.
Yes.
The Carson Clay production of a Carson Clay film starring Carson Clay, I find funny every single time, particularly whenever I've made my own stuff and I've had to put like edited by, directed by, written by, starring Don Bajoria. I just feel like Willem Dafoe. I can't help it. But all the stuff about the zooming in with his arm and not using the zoom in feature on the camera, but zooming in with his arm and not speaking a word of English is brilliant. The Simpsons movie has humour in it, which I've carried through my whole life, which is Spider Pig. Yeah. I have a note from the president. It says to release this town immediately. Why is it written on a leaf? And he punches him in the face. I fucking love that film. So, they're about to dump a body in the lake, the mafia. And the Chief Wiggum goes, guys, sorry, no dumping in the lake. And he goes, fine, I will take my yard trimmings to the trash compactor. And he goes, Chief, I think that was a dead body in there. Yeah, so did I. Till he said yard trimmings. You gotta learn to listen, Lou. And it's all this kind of like obvious absurdist stuff that it's carried with me like my whole life. I love it. 2 more honorable mentions. I would be remiss without saying it, and I've seen a lot online recently about it being the worst in the series, but that breaks my heart because I love it. Oh. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire really shaped my love for like dark landscapes and stuff, and dragons and fantasy and that kind of thing when I was a kid. It was the first Harry Potter film that I really properly went, wow, this is for me. This is my franchise. I love this stuff. And I've mentioned it before. I think the score's wonderful. Yes, it omits loads from the book. Of course it does, but it's a hunker of a book to try and land. It's the first big chunky book of the series. Whatever problems there may be with it, it always stuck with me, and I have a soft spot for it. And the final one, and this is, I think, undoubtedly the worst film on the list. Oh. They did a live-action remake of Thunderbirds.
Oh, Thunderbirds are a go.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I bet you if I watched it now, I would look at every single element of it and go, it's absolutely terrible. Yeah. But the last time I watched it, I would have been about 8. And so in my head, it's still this kind of wondrous, look what films can do. They made the Thunderbirds real. I want to be one of those teenagers that are cool and go and help the Thunderbirds out films. It's probably objectively utterly horrific.
Yes.
But I'm not going to watch it again, ever. And that was part of my childhood.
Yeah. I think it's probably better if you never watch it again, because then it stays as that sort of beautiful memory.
Yeah, it won't sully itself for me. Yeah. So go on then, let's get into our list proper then, in terms of childhood films that shaped us. Roddy, what is your number 5 childhood film that shaped you?
Okay. So this is a film, and it holds a very dear place in my heart. It's one of my first films I remember from Lucidity. It was so good that this film went straight to Tesco DVD aisle, and my mum picked it out when she was looking for a cheap and easy way to entertain us when she went to friends' houses for dinner parties. So, my film is The Adventures of Chris Fable.
I've not heard of this film.
And so I was talking to Dom about this. I said to Dom, I'll do a reenactment. Dom, I don't think this section's going to work on a podcast. And then Dom said, well, that's fine, we can edit it out. So now we're going to edit this out as I show Dom the trailer to this film. Because he needs to see this so he can also vocalize the vibe this film gives off. Okay. So we're going to take an intermission.
All right, here we go. Brace ourselves.
Okay.
I had this dream last night. There was a war and everything and everyone I knew
Right, it's shit. Is that supposed to be his dad?
That's definitely not a good idea.
Why is he surrounded by, like, Victorian children?
I think it's like Oliver in a dystopian future. And I guess that's Fagin.
It's in Mark David. Shot on iPhone. I mean,
This doesn't even show most of the film. There's like a hot air balloon chase sequence, and then he's in the Matrix.
oh god.
I'll take my chances.
Cold. The effect. With a budget of £9. Where the world ends. The adventure begins. The Adventures
in the Harry
of
Potter
Chris
one.
Fable. Definitely not Harry Potter. Time to believe. I don't know how much of that I'm gonna keep some of that in, I think.
It was such an interesting film because obviously it was horrific in quality. I mean, you saw that. It looked like it was shot on like a phone.
It looked like it was made on iMovie.
Yeah, and it seemed to follow me absolutely everywhere I went. So my mum chose it as a film when I was like really young, and we watched it in the back of a car. And then it was shown in my school, and then like one of my parents picked out that film as well. And I kind of thought it was just ubiquitous with people's childhoods, but like no one I've spoken to has ever seen the film. And it is like the film that has stuck with me throughout the entire. And it's taught me a lot. It's taught me about fighting big robots in a big yard full of broken down cars.
It did look like it all took place in the same place.
Yeah, it did.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So it taught me a lot about that place. I will never go there, but
Can you please Google what the budget for the film was?
oh, it'd be billions, I think, adjusted for inflation,
Adjusted for
obviously.
inflation,
Hold on. So it's got 2.3 stars on IMDb,
Right.
which I think is unjustified. I don't know if it has.
Has it got a Wikipedia page?
With such a low, limited budget.
The answer is no.
Yeah,
Basically, it
I
was
didn't-
made on a packet of crisps.
Yeah, I don't.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't think it has any information.
But that's a formative film for you.
The most formative film
Mm-hmm.
for me. Yeah, directed by Andrew Weist.
Oh yeah. No, I've got no idea.
No, I mean, I don't know.
Well, do you know what?
Yep.
It's a humble place to begin.
Yes.
I quite like it as a bar. I don't think I've included anything worse than that, to be honest. That makes Thunderbirds look like Raging Bull. Like, that's quite something.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. Okay, my number 5 is Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I think this should have won Best Cinematography in the year that it was released at the Oscars. It looks absolutely astonishing the whole way through. It's got some fantastic gags, great voice acting, Aardman's usual wonderful attention to detail. It's by far and away the most ambitious of the Wallace and Gromit films. It covers so much ground in such a tight space of time. Every single frame of it is like packed with XYZ detail. It's so good. And because it's a kid film, it's the kind of thing that's rewatchable to the extreme. And then all of the bonus stuff that you get from the visuals of it, which you don't appreciate much as a kid because you just see it as the animation style, you get as a bonus when you're an adult, and it really transcends through. And I think it's one of the greatest stop motion films ever made. It carries on the legacy of Wallace and Gromit into the modern day with perfect style, and I don't think it puts a foot wrong, to be honest.
But what does it shape about you?
What
as
does
a
it shape
child?
about me? It shaped the thing that it shaped about me. So as a kid, I think you're constantly looking to be braver than you actually are. And part of the thing about the Curse of the Were-Rabbit is it's a traditional werewolf story told using a rabbit. And on some level it makes you go, scary film, nice, big boy. And then obviously it's like a U certificate. And then what I found is that I loved it so much as a kid for like just the story it was telling and the fun it was having with it and the ability of it to make me feel like I was in a spooky environment. And as I've grown older, what I've started to love about it is more and more of the other elements of it. There's a great joke where there's a policeman with a really tall hat, and you used to think, well, his hat's ridiculous, and then he takes his hat off, and his head is shaped exactly the same. And it's just little gags like that, which you totally miss as a kid.
Yeah.
And then you watch it back and you go, they cared about every second of this. And I really, really appreciate that. And it taught me a lot about, like, like I used to make tiny little crappy Lego stop motion animation things as a kid in my first kind of efforts at filmmaking, and it stems from stuff like Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, I find that hand animated and stop motion. So I watched Coraline recently. I rewatched it, and when I was watching it, obviously I appreciated the art style. I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. But also, I sort of realised that everything in the background was also so carefully done.
Yeah.
I feel like modern day animation, you can get away with smudging the background, make it all sort of like vaguely unintelligible blobs. But in stop motion, because everything's handmade, you know, they'll detail everything from like each individual bar of chocolate to like everything. So, like you were saying, every individual frame of those stop motion films is just packed with information, which makes it so interesting to look at. And it's only something I appreciated on the rewatch of Coraline recently, because I haven't watched stop motion in ages. So it's such a cool genre. You should do an episode on that.
Do you know what? It's almost as if I've tried to do that. And your bloody girlfriend. We digress. Talk me through your number 4 already.
Yeah. So I should have prefaced this first, but my 5 are split into categories. So so we have the scary category, which I haven't done yet. The funny category, which I have not done yet.
Right.
The scarred category, which I have not done yet.
As in music, as in like
specials,
or like they scarred you?
Yeah, no, it scarred me.
Right. Okay.
The emotional category, which I am about to do, and the memorable category, which I've done with Chris Fable.
So the only.
Yeah, so that was my memorable one.
Memorable category.
Yes, yeah,
it was the worst film anyone's ever seen.
Yes, well, it is. Okay. So for me, the emotion, and I actually watched a YouTube breakdown of this film, and it really highlighted the poignancy of it, the genre-breaking boundaries that this director pushed to make this film happen, and to create the plotline for it, and to adapt what was such a small amount of source material into like a 90 minutes worth of footage. I mean, it's a feat. And this film, of course, is Where the Wild Things Are.
I'm genuinely astonished that you've chosen a good film.
A fantastic film.
Fabulous.
Actually. It's
well done.
I remember watching it with my little brother and sister, and they were babies, so they were kind of like dumb and like babies. So like when we were watching it, they didn't really get it, and they were scared by the big monsters. And I remember the moment where whatever the big monster is tries to eat the child, and everything kind of kicks off and the child leaves the island. I was so sad. I think I cried, actually. I was so... The monster shows so much remorse and grief for trying to, engulf the child in its mouth.
Sure.
It was one of the first times that I remember watching a film where I was like... I very much emotionally resonated with the message, and I was like, oh, wow. This medium can make me feel emotions like the rest of the world can make me feel emotions. I think it's a very important film in how I was shaped as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent choice. I think there's some elements of Spike Jonze films where you just go, I don't know that I've got the words to describe the way this is actually making me feel.
Mm. And
that's okay. I think that's the prime example. I absolutely love Where the Wild Things Are. I think that's such a great choice. It's got that thing as well of it's a tale as old as time, which is the monstrous character or monstrous looking character that by the end, the whole point of the film is you realise is emotionally the same as any of the other characters, and you end up relating to them in exactly the same way. It's got James Gandolfini, as far as I remember, as the voice. Yeah, that's a great choice. That's a really, really good choice. I love that film, yeah. This was in the emotional category.
That was the emotional
quite
category.
Right, I'd say. Quite right. I don't want to reveal my number 4 after that.
Oh, what is your number 4?
Well, my number 4 is not in the same... you've sculpted your categories very well.
Yeah.
My number 4 is the SpongeBob movie.
Oh no.
And this is the thing, is everyone goes, oh yeah, Dom. Yeah, I know Dom. Yeah, my cineast friend. Yeah, he loves films. Listen. Just listen, right? Some of the best jokes in any film I've ever seen are present in the SpongeBob movie.
Not.
No, I'm sorry, but they are. And the thing is, it still makes my dad laugh. And my dad is approaching 60 years of age. And so don't tell me I'm daft, because they're clearly still funny, right? Squidward in the shower going, la-da-dee, la-da-doo, la-da-dum, washing himself, do that, and then SpongeBob behind him going, la-da-dee, la-da-doo, la-da-doo, and it takes him a full, 20 seconds to realise that someone's singing behind him. Is brilliant. And it has maybe my favourite line in a comedy film ever, which is Squidward opens the window of his house and he goes, too bad SpongeBob's not here to enjoy SpongeBob not being here. I've never related to a character more in my life than Squidward. I think if I could have one character champion my existence, I think it would be Squidward. I'm not even kidding. But what I do genuinely want to say about it is that it does what any animated TV film based on a TV series, it does whatever that should do, which is not try and deviate too far from its source material, not try and go big epic adventure which completely changes everything you ever knew about the series as a kid and doesn't relate to what you saw. It basically just does a funny, slightly more adventurous version, like a slightly longer version of the normal TV show itself. And the plot of the SpongeBob movie begins and ends in the same way Bikini Bottom always is, right? It doesn't make this any huge, great changes. Like, it introduces some new characters like the King and all this kind of stuff, but they're really fun and they don't detract from what the series normally was. And, why is the Tear of the Goofy Goobers more emotional than anything in Napoleon or Megalopolis? Like, how is that fundamentally possible? And what I've always loved about SpongeBob, and it's very present in the SpongeBob movie, why is it that they've got this sort of classic 2D animation style, which everyone knows and love, and it's quite sort of blocky, but shaded interestedly with good depth, and every now and again there will be one frame which is the most 4K high definition image you've ever seen in your life. There's just one frame where they do it and you go, why is that there? Who had the time to draw that? And they're flooded in the SpongeBob movie. I think SpongeBob was a big time killer for me as a kid. And the SpongeBob movie was they nailed what the film should have been. The later ones, some of which I've seen, just completely forget what it is that SpongeBob's trying to do. But the first SpongeBob movie, 2004, I think it is so true to Steven Hillenburg's creations that it feels like the proper way to respect them in a cinematic concept.
Yeah, I think on in the subject of sort of cartoon adaptations to films deviating from source material, the two ones that I think do that badly that come to mind, sort of the opposite of what you just said, there's one Winnie the Pooh movie, and I can't remember which one it is, and just like you say, they go on an epic adventure, and they journey through mountains and go through a crystal cave. And I remember watching it.
Oh, I think I remember that one as well.
Yeah, and they go into a mine, and I was like, what the... This is...
I think
Winnie the Pooh doesn't have a mine in it, doesn't have a crystal... When did this happen? And I feel like that is so, the opposite of what it should be, because all of a sudden it's like a film, and there's also the Winnie the Pooh characters in it, but otherwise it's not related to it.
Yeah.
And then also on art style, I think that's so important, because the most recent SpongeBob film is a completely different art style to the cartoon, which is weird, because I feel like for animated shows, one of the most notable things for them is their art style. That's one of their, voice acting and art style, that's the two things they've got. And another one that sort of weirdly deviates from it, it's one of my favourite shows, is Bob's Burgers. Completely deviates from it in the film. It gets all 3D, and they clearly had a big budget and didn't know what to do with it, and they just spent it on extra animating. And all of a sudden you're like, what am I watching? It feels super weird. So it's good to know that the SpongeBob film didn't do either of those things. Basically
it didn't.
Yeah, that's good. So
which category on for you now?
We're on Scarred, and I watched this film when I was 9. It was the first time I got drunk. I got blackout drunk on a drink called Angostura Bitters. So it's like a thing that you're meant to put in your salads. You're not meant to drink the stuff. Yeah. And we just drunk all of it, because we found it in the kids bar, and clearly the adults had thought, oh, there's no way kids will ever drink this, and we drank all of it. So I got blackout drunk, but before I got blackout drunk, we watched the one film that we found, and it was Django Unchained.
Are you kidding me?
No.
2016's Django Unchained. Was it 2016? No, it's before that, isn't it? It's 20...
Yeah, I don't know how old
20,
I was.
2012, I think, Django Unchained.
Yeah, so that
like
would check out, yeah. So I would have been about like 9 or 10, yeah.
Right.
And...
My God.
Yeah, we watched
hell.
Django Unchained, and I think that was the most, like...
Well, yeah.
Traumatized I've ever been from a film. It was like the first time I'd seen any of this stuff, heard any of these words.
Could you even comprehend its kind of...
Well, I knew it
social
was
magnitude?
bad because the guy whose house I was at had the DVD and he'd watched it before.
Oh,
and he was like the cool guy, and I think his dad had shown it to... His middle name is Danger, by the way, for reference to his character.
As in his
like
actual
his genuine
middle
name is Danger. I wouldn't say his full name, but his middle name is Danger.
He will have used that in every bar
Isn't
he's
it?
ever been
It
in.
really is so so cool. But yeah, I remember he was like, "Let's watch this film," and I kind of just sat there, mouth agape,
Oh my God.
as everything that happens in Django Unchained sort of unraveled.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I don't want to get too much into the specifics for Django Unchained. To be fair, that was the first and only time I've watched the film, so
Right.
like my memory of it is pretty hazy. I just remember there being a lot of shooting, a lot of killing, and a lot of bad words. I won't say which ones.
Many bad words.
But pretty
There's
bad
a
words.
compilation on YouTube of every time it's used in that film.
Really? How
And
is
it's
it a
like
lot?
2.5 minutes long.
God.
You watched all 165 minutes of Django Unchained.
I feel like we must have got like distracted at some point
That's
to then go
bizarre.
drink Angus Churros. It was a strange night.
Wow. See, that's the thing. I don't know if I'd be able to comprehend the kind of weight of the theming of that film.
Oh, I definitely missed like
Yeah,
most
sure.
of it. I think I like the things I remember is Samuel L. Jackson shooting people in a staircase or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah.
So you've not seen it since?
No, not seen it since. Maybe I should.
Maybe you should. I feel like we
revisit
should
it.
sit down and watch it at some point, because that would be like, I'd love to see those memories reawaken for you. I've never thought ever of looking at Django through like a nostalgic lens, being like, oh, I remember those days.
Yeah. On a similar vein, there was. So I used to go to a boarding school, right? And every month we'd go on like a school-wide cinema trip.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know the film Impossible.
With Tom Holland.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a tsunami
Yeah.
thing. I think it was improperly rated,
Right.
but we went. I was 9
Oh,
at the
it's
time.
horrible.
Yeah, I was 9, and I went to see Impossible. And my whole year, we got to choose, and I saw Impossible. There's a scene, and I don't want to be too graphic. If you're squeamish, cover your ears. Where like someone's skin flaps off.
It's the leg, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's the
yeah.
back of the calf.
And there's like
yeah.
it's so like detailed and grotesque. And I was 9.
Yeah.
And that image is still like seared into my. It was a bad year for films for
Yeah.
me to watch.
Seemingly.
Yeah, so that like those two films, they scarred me.
I
to
think
say
it's
the least.
amazing how much films can do that at that kind of age. How much those just images, despite however much you convince yourself that you know it's a fiction, how much those images can stick with you and play in your mind. If we're talking about films that stuck with us, the first horror film that I ever watched, any chunk of, was the first Paranormal Activity. And so I've always said that I've got a weird soft spot for Paranormal Activity because it shit me up for like
Scary.
months.
Yeah.
And the problem with it was that we were at a friend's house having a chill evening, watching whatever, and then it was on, Channel 4 or whatever on a Friday evening, and we stuck it on for a bit, and as a young kid, obviously it was like, what the hell? I'm sorry, you what? Went to bed shaking, couldn't sleep for the life of me, and about an hour after I'd tried to shut my eyes and go to bed, a poster fell off my wall.
Oh, you're joking.
And it was just like, nope, no, not for me. No. Thank you very much. So that was one. If I was going to have a scarred category, that would be it. But it's weirdly less heavy than Django Unchained. I mean, that is quite something.
Yeah, I guess like part of the reason that it is because at that age, that's when we start sort of disconnecting our fantasies from reality. You know, up until then, playing with toys and imagining a whole world so easy. So I guess if you watch super like heavy hitting films
Yes.
at that point. It's so hard to distinguish that between the real world. So
Particularly when they look like they're based in realism, as those films are designed to. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Okay. Well, on a lighter note, I feel like your list is so much more highbrow than mine. Like
For
so much
once.
more highbrow. Yeah. My number 3 is Johnny English Reborn.
what a shout!
It's an unbelievable film.
God, that's so good.
Every single scene of it is like unutterably hilarious when you break it down to the bare bones of it. And it highlights why I think Rowan Atkinson is one of the greatest comedy actors to ever live.
Yeah.
Because his physicality is absolutely everything. And what's really brilliant about, like, so you think about Mr. Bean, and it's a thing entirely based on physical humour and physical comedy, so that it transcends language. And then you get to a film like this, which is, you know, it's got a big script with lots of lines in it, but the way he delivers lines, because of the character that we know that he's playing, is almost universal in of itself. Like this kind of suave, overconfident guy. You don't need to know what he's saying to know that he's overconfident, and then you look at him and nothing about what he does says confident man, right?
Yeah.
It all just says complete mess.
Yeah.
I whistle the background music to this all the time. It's like a tick for me. The music that plays throughout various stages that goes...
Oh yeah.
That is my go-to. Whenever I'm doing anything, I will whistle the Johnny English theme. Like when he turns a bit Toshiba, British Intelligence, which is such a great gag. It's one of those films which I can quote from start to finish. So don't ever watch it with me because you will want to stop the second we hit play. Like it's a terrible idea. And yet in conversation, every time I quote it, people are loving life, right? Every time I say shot, as was my friend Fisher, actually. Everyone goes, good reference, I like that. I honestly think that it's maybe the most even more quotable than Hot Fuzz, maybe, for me, in terms of like the amount of things that I say from it. So, yeah, it's definitely stuck with me.
Yeah, there is something about that style of comedy. So I'm on a bit of a, as I told you before the podcast, a bit of a Leslie Nielsen kick.
Yeah.
And it's a very similar character. It's sort of like the straight man. Like, I was thinking as you were talking about this, I feel if you stripped away all the video and just left you with the audio, you think, oh, I'm watching a serious, like, police agent right now. And then again, if you stripped away the audio and just watched the video, you'd be like, oh, I'm watching a clown in a police officer outfit. And I feel like that is such a... And you don't really see that anymore. It's like comedy and like slapstick humor delivered with a completely straight face. You know, they have every intention of being serious and they just do the funniest stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a good show. I think I'll rewatch that.
It's also fed. It's one of those kids' films just fed in with lines that adults are also going to love as well. Yeah. So like, okay, you get the very slapstick kind of falling out of a cable car. Let's kick some bottom and all this kind of stuff. But then they get to Le Bastion, the big defense base where they're holding the meeting, and there's loads of guards there, and he just goes, "Dear God, let me not die in the hands of the Swiss." And it's like, that means nothing to a kid, but you watch it and you get older and it's really funny. I just think, every single... And, like, it's such a weirdly strong cast. Like, so you've got Rowan Atkinson, and then around him is Dominic West, Gillian Anderson, Daniel Kaluuya, Rosamund Pike. Like, there's loads and loads of good actors in it, and it's just bizarre. Like, Tim McInnery, they're all there. The chase on the wheelchair through London.
Oh my God, that's so good.
So good. The entire sequence fighting with Ambrose. All the sequences with the killer cleaner from Hong Kong. They're just like the needing to get Karlenko to a hospital and ending up just singing The Angel and the Dreamer in the helicopter and that being it. And then they land at the hospital and he just dies on the spot. So the entire thing was utterly pointless. Like I can't imagine how many fist bumps they must have done when they were writing the scripts, just to be nailed that. And it's a long time for me since I saw like a classic British comedy hit that hard.
Yeah, it doesn't happen much anymore, sadly.
No. Right, the next category,
That's
number two, as it were, number two. It's what is it labelled as this time?
So sort of on a similar note, this is funny. This is the funny category.
Okay.
So, I'm a hilariously funny individual. I'm probably the most funny person I know on the planet, and that doesn't come easily. I've worked my balls off, and that started at a young age. And so I've got 2 films in this category because I'm so funny. I had to have 2, and so the first one is George of the Jungle.
Great show.
1 or 2, it doesn't matter. 1's probably better, and I think that is so. Who narrates that actually? I feel like it's someone. It's like very Monty Python-esque
I don't know,
in like the narration.
Should we Google it?
I think it's probably going to be someone insignificant, but they're imitating like a very like British,
Yes.
like comedic narration style, and I feel like that style of humor is so good because it's completely stupid slapstick going on, which is like super, as you were saying, like good for kids to watch. Who is it?
Keith Scott.
Who the hell is Keith Scott?
No idea.
Yeah, I thought it was just someone completely insignificant. But like, it's like the most stupid slapstick stuff of what Brendan Fraser slamming his like bollocks into a tree and whatnot when he's like swinging around. Like that's great for kids and whatever. It's really funny. But like then you've got the gorilla or the narrator like just being completely deadpan and actually being genuinely funny. And I feel like as I grew up, I found those bits more and more funny, and I still watch it to this day for those exact reasons. Sort of, I don't want to rehash too much of what you said, but I feel like it's meritorious for those sort of very same reasons. And then the other film, again, you sort of touched on it a bit, Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
So I watched that at a crazy young age. I had a babysitter over who had a massive crush on it at the time.
You've got red on you.
What a little guy. I had a babysitter over who I had a bit of a crush on, and she popped on Shaun of the Dead.
Right.
When I was 8.
Too young.
Yeah. For like a zombie film where like people do get like ripped apart
yeah.
and like there's a lot of swearing. Yeah. And ever since then I've watched Shaun of the Dead a lot. I didn't even know it was part of a trilogy. I didn't know Nick Frost and Simon Pegg did like other films together.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is the funny film with the ginger man and the fat man. This is the film.
And then you watch Dylan Moran get his guts ripped out and you go, oh god, no.
Not the nerdy guy, but like, yeah, I mean that film, like initially I thought it was really scary and I didn't really get much of the humour from it because like I was like literally an infant. And then as I grew up, I kept watching it because it was always kind of stuck in my brain. And like I sort of grew with the humour and I very much grew into that style of sort of like very, very dry humour. I mean, it doesn't get much drier than that sort of, you know, like Cornetto stuff. And I feel like that's massively formative, both for like, I guess kind of horror as well. It didn't quite scar me because it didn't stick with me in a traumatic way like the others did. But like, it definitely stuck with me in a sort of spooky and then what turned into a funny way. So yeah, Shaun of the Dead.
I've spoken about Shaun of the Dead on this podcast before, but like so much of it is so unbelievably clever. And like it's one of Edgar Wright's best films purely because of the limitations that he had put on him and what he still managed to create out of it. Like I think all filmmakers work better when there's limitations put on their work. And the idea of just having it like to keep it basically in a pub and a neighborhood and that be it in small budget and stuff, and you know the stuff that comes out of it, like the "Don't Stop Me Now" sequence where they're hitting zombies is fantastic.
Yeah. You really like the montage sequences.
Yeah, I do. You? Yeah, I think they're really well done. I think they're really clever. I think like, and that's the thing is Edgar Wright's always keen to use cuts and camera movements where he can to move the and use it in a jokey way if he can. So like the idea of Bill Nye in one shot being normal, Simon Pegg leans in front of him and then leans backwards and he's turned into the zombie then, and then everyone can start screaming to get out of the car. The two slightly strange uses of the N-word from Nick Frost in that film was something that I'd completely forgotten about.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I haven't watched it in a while.
He pulls up in the car and goes, "Sup?" and then says the N-word, and everyone it's supposed to be like, because he's watching so much TV, and that's just what he does. I mean, it's like, obviously it comes out in like 2006, and then you watch it in like 2024, and you go, oh no, maybe not now.
Nick Frost.
But like, yeah, that's like the only thing in it that isn't just utterly superb.
Yeah,
that's such a great show. I mean, I wouldn't have included it as a childhood thing, but like the way you're describing it, obviously it was part of the show. Like Django and Shaun of the Dead were both. Fair enough.
I think it really explains why I am the way I am now. That you know.
Yeah, but I think long term that'll serve you well.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so my number 2 is more of my sort of foray into more slightly adult/young adult storytelling. Is The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh.
I think it has really, really good elements of young adult stuff. For years, I thought it was kind of like flawless. And
Really?
then as I grew up, I realised I was being hoodwinked by Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone being so charismatic together and just being such good actors themselves that I was like, there is nothing wrong with this. And then you watch it again and you go, oh, that's a bit choppy. Why did Irfan Khan have to come in and say that? Why is, all this kind of stuff. And it moves in slightly strange ways in terms of when it is and when it isn't on and when it's, all this sort of stuff. But the story is choppy, but the visuals are fabulous. The way that the Dr. Connors looks as a lizard is, I think, amazing. I actually think the score is really, really good. It's James Horner who does it. That Spider-Man theme is something which really stuck with me as a kid. There's the scene where he's learning to sort of control his athleticism and he does the skateboarding, which leads into the swinging on the chains and stuff. There's a theme that plays during that, and again, that's something that I whistle all the time. So it's like this stuff. I think I'm more attached maybe to musical stuff that which like makes me think of nostalgic times as a kid. Yeah, and that's a big part of it. It's a comfort film for me. Andrew Garfield's my Spider-Man. For sure.
Really?
Yeah, without a doubt.
It's not my Spider-Man.
Well, this is the thing, is like, he got dealt a really bad deal with the films he was in.
Yes. But
he's the best actor to have played Spider-Man for me. I think Tobey Maguire absolutely nails being Peter Parker.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
I think Tom Holland is a nice balance between the two in the sort of like elevated Hayden Marvel world. I think he balances it really nice, but like in terms of the person that I believe most and wants to believe in most, it's definitely Andrew Garfield for me.
Yeah, I feel like Andrew Garfield definitely looks the part of Spider-Man the most. I feel like you just said his name, the first guy.
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, Tobey Maguire. I feel like he always kind of looked a bit old, even from the beginning.
He did look like a sort of grown-up person, didn't he?
Yeah, whereas I feel like Andrew Garfield was like the perfect age, and Tom Holland just feels slightly too immature. Andrew Garfield actually seems like someone who, he's still at school or like university or whatever, but like he can still take on the responsibilities that he needs to, whereas Tom Holland just seems a bit childish and infantile at some points. Yeah. That is a really good show.
I get that. Well, yeah, it just, it has a really sort of weirdly grown up script.
Is this the one where Emma Stone dies?
No, that's the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Right, okay.
Which is a tonal mess of a film. Yeah. It's so choppy up and down, and what are you doing? Which film are you trying to be? But what I like about that is when we get to No Way Home, and the scene, spoilers, the scene where Andrew Garfield Spider-Man saves Zendaya, he knows that the better way to do it is to catch her first and then web to a solid place rather than try and web her up from a height, because that's how he lost his Gwen before. And I think that's a really, really nice detail.
I didn't catch that. I caught him catching it as like, but I didn't.
He changes the way that he does it so that he can. He's learned from the last time. Yeah, I believed in their relationship more than I believed in Tobey Maguire or Kristen Dunst, or I believed in Tom Holland and Zendaya. I felt most like they were actually kind of going through this together, and all the stuff, like, I think the reason why I thought it was so good was like the way that Andrew Garfield emotionally deals with the death of Uncle Ben is the most raw out of any of them, I think.
Even Tom Holland and
losing Aunt May, which is a fantastic scene, and Tom Holland does that so well. They're both, him and Marissa Tomei both do so well in that scene. I'm not taking away from that. You can't give me Martin Sheen and Sally Field and Andrew Garfield and expect me to think that Tom Holland and Marissa Tomei act better than them. Yeah. There's not many people in the history of film that have acted better than those three. So, it's cast really nice. And you've got, like, in the thing, you've got Rhys Ifans and you've got Irfan Khan and you've got Emma Stone, and like it's a really properly good cast with time dedicated to making it look good. Great swinging scenes, slightly dodgy scripts and choppy story here and there, but like it's a comfort for me, and it's the kind of like one of the first things that I remember of being like the transition from not just enjoying like straight up kids films or like the full Monty of whatever, being like a nice in between and being like, here's some young adult stuff. So yeah, that's mine.
That is great.
So what's your final category then, really?
So, my final category is, I don't know what to call it. So I just call it scary, but they're not scary films. I don't think they're meant to be scary films. But they are films that when I watched, scared me deeply.
Sorry if you can hear my slurping. Go on then.
He's drinking milk.
It's not milk.
It's weird that he drinks.
Not milk.
It's a double pint of milk.
It's hard London water.
He's come to my house in London and he's drunk all my milk that I had in my fridge.
You got him milk? And he went, yeah, and I just grabbed the card.
Yeah.
And I went, mine?
He finished my whole dedicated milk fridge in like a couple of hours and then said, can we go to the pub, please? And I said, have you not had enough fluid? Anyway, he's back to drinking milk. So my scary films, the first one is Happy Feet.
Great show.
Now, when you think Happy Feet, you don't think scary film, you think happy film. But actually, well, maybe not. I haven't watched it since I was scared. I've never had a desire to rewatch it because of the feeling it gives me when I think of it. But there's a specific scene that I think of when he gets captured and he goes in the zoo and he sees all these people as like aliens that have abducted him. Mm-hmm. And like that has always stuck with me. Whenever I go to a zoo, I'm like, I kind of get twinges of that emotion that I saw then. Yeah. And it's like the pure happiness of Happy Feet. Did he have a name or was he called Happy Feet? Was that his...
Mumble.
Oh, Mumble. Okay, well, I'm going to call him Happy Feet.
I think.
No, I think you're definitely right. That is definitely it. He's definitely called that. But yeah, it gave me the proper heebies and like a weird dystopian vibe. And Dom and I were actually talking about this before the podcast. Is like there was a massive dystopian vibe going on in sort of the 2000s, like when the kids films that we were watching came out. Sort of like I was saying, Meet the Robinsons, Wall-E, all that sort of stuff. And Happy Feet sort of goes along with that. It's weirdly like alien and unknown. So yeah, there's that one, and then the other one, and this is for a reason that is actually my own dumb like baby brain's fault, but Spirited Away. Now that is actually a scary film.
Baby
yeah, I was a dumb fucking baby.
No, that is a scary film.
It's a scary film, but I find it scary for other reasons. Hold on, I'm gonna move really quick so I can show Dom.
Roddy has just donned a bright pink hat which says "Babies are cancelled."
Yeah, because I think babies are dumb shirts that don't contribute to the economy, but that's sort of besides the point.
Pay some tax, love, and then we'll start talking.
Yeah, well, that's it. If they can eat that much, they can pay taxes. But like, okay, so the thing was with Spirited Away for me was that my aunt spent a lot of time in China, and she brought back Spirited Away, and I think she was trying to learn her Chinese. But when she gave me the DVD, it had Chinese. It was like the audio was in Chinese.
Right.
And the subtitles were in Chinese also. So when I put the disc in and pressed play, there were like all of these like people in like a weird cartoon style I'd never seen, speaking a weird language that I'd never heard. And then she's running about, and then her parents get turned into pigs, and I don't know what's going on because everyone's speaking a weird language, and there's these weird symbols coming up on my screen, but I don't know what they are. And I just kind of sit there for a bit, getting vaguely traumatized by this child crying in a street and getting haunted by ghosts that are all speaking a made-up language, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And I've never watched it since. And
you've only seen it the once.
I know it's meant to be a beautiful film. I love Studio Ghibli films. I've said it on record before. Some of the like Princess Mononoke is one of my favorite films, but like it just properly gives me the heebies. I don't think I've ever been as scared as when I watched Spirited Away in Chinese.
I don't even understand it. I can't even appreciate it. I don't get it.
It was terrifying.
That's
so
really
yeah, that is a film that's always stuck with me.
Are two excellent choices, and I will say also I should have picked Happy Feet at some point in my mentions or list because it shaped my utter adoration for penguins. I think they're the best. I just think there's no animal greater than a bird so evolutionarily complacent that it forgot to fly. It just can't fly. It just waddles about the gaff and occasionally slides on its own stomach and eats fish. Yeah. And it's like, what were you doing? Like, what? And yet they're adorable.
You and Benedict Cumberbatch both.
Yeah, but at least I can say it.
Yeah.
Pangolins. These are Fjordland-crested pangolins. I'm doing his voice like Brian Butterfield. Saturday is treat day. There's several bits of Happy Feet which are horrifying for me, not least because they are penguins, but like, so the old Scottish penguin is creepy. The one with the long neck. The beer can plastic stuck around the neck is horrible.
I forgot about that.
The killer whales are terrifying.
Yeah.
The seals are
terrifying.
And the zoo is terrifying.
God, when did you watch this film? You have a much better memory of it than
it stuck with me. That's the thing. It stuck with me loads as a kid. But yeah, I'm right. It is Mumble, and it's Elijah Wood who does the voice.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
And it's so I don't quite know how they got away with making such a harrowing film.
Yeah, it was pretty intense, wasn't it?
But it was so uplifting as well, like all the stuff about needing somebody to love, and they're singing that, and then at the end all the happy, he uses his little tappy feet, and it's great.
Yeah.
And then obviously Spirited Away is just like a sort of tragic masterpiece.
Is it meant to be a scary film?
No, it's not meant to be scary. It's but what it is for your kid is it's ethereal in a way that makes you like, even if you're watching it in Chinese, it makes you like require a deeper understanding of it, or a perspective that you don't have as a kid until you observe something like that, and then you go, oh my god, and then it does become scarier. I don't know how much of that you'd have picked up having watched it in Chinese.
Yeah,
but
I only watched the first 15 minutes as well.
Okay.
It probably shouldn't be on this list.
I would revisit it if I were you, because I hope you're enjoying this top 5 list of 6-minute long children's films. But no, they're both very good choices. Okay, and it brings me on to my final category. And I debated on this, and it's like, there's a reason why I'm saying that this 5-to-1 list is not a definitive like fifth favourite to first favourite, whatever. But I would be stupid if I didn't include this. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Golly. Yep.
For me, and I'm serious when I say this, the greatest battle scene in the history of cinema.
Ooh.
And now, people have said the Ride of Rohirrim from Lord of the Rings. People have said, stuff from All Quiet on the Western Front and Saving Private Ryan and stuff. Yeah. I genuinely don't know that I've seen anything quite as strong as the battle scene in this. And it starts with a wonderful transition from observing a map to the camera flying into the map and into the actual space where the battle takes place itself. And all the stuff you've seen in the build-up with, them navigating the world of Narnia and becoming heads of it, becoming like powerful figures within the realm. It then culminates with them looking over the top of this battlefield where they can't quite see the enemy yet, but there's a fantastic army of great beasts which are fighting on their side. Then you slowly watch the White Witch and her forces emerge from over the hill, and you see there are thousands of them, and they look really intimidating. The CGI for all of it is fantastic. All the creatures look great, yeah. And then you get this fabulous score from Harry Gregson Williams. It's just so unnecessarily hard for a kid's fantasy film. All this goes on, and you're getting really hyped up, and everyone's looking, and you see, he turns to his centaur friend, and he goes, "Are you with me?" And the centaur goes, "To the death." And then he puts the mask down, and it's like, "Ooh, so shit, get me in there, get me the fuck in there." And then they start, the White Witch forces start charging, and Peter holds his charge. He sends the arrows in over the top first, and then eventually he sends his forces in to charge in and meet them. And the music dies down, and eventually sort of echoistically cuts out, and the only thing you hear is a heartbeat, and the camera focuses in on Peter's helmet, and the heartbeat is calm, normal paced, relaxed, and it shows that Peter is not fazed. He has grown so strong and such a force within Narnia that he is now grown up enough as Narnia. There's a point of Narnia is supposed to be to grow these kids up and show them how to be adults in the real world. Yeah. He's strong enough now to be calm before the battle, and the music goes, you hear his heartbeat, it's so still, and then the first tigers clash with each other, and there's this eruption of noise, and then all the swords hitting each other, and shields and horses and centaurs and arrows and eagles and all this kind of stuff, and it's like this massive cacophony of noise. And I've not seen that tiny little detail of just going, he's ready for this, but here it fucking comes, and then it just goes hog wild, and it's like, this is a kid's film, but you've got like wild boar looking human beasts with massive axes chopping people down. You've got cyclopses looking horrible, wielding massive hammers trying to knock people out of the way, and then you've got people with bows and arrows on fire, firing things at eagles and dropping rocks on people, and it's like, it's quite brutal stuff. But the design is stellar. The CGI, because this was back when Disney had the time to focus on one film, so they devoted all their attention to it. It looks amazing. Yeah. The evil characters are terrifying as a kid without being off-putting terrifying. The acting for kids is actually pretty bloody good. Like, it's stood up. You know, they're 4 kids at the time, and there's not like a weak performance in them. As a child, it was the perfect encapsulation for me of a world I could dream of, aspire to, be brave in without consequence, enjoy, and then return to the world of being a kid as if nothing had happened. Yeah. That's such a great bit when they're old people. Like, every kid wants to be an old person, and they want to grow up and be important and cool and respected. And then they find the lamppost again, and they go back through the trees, and they all come out of the wardrobe, and they're kids again, and they go, damn, that was just teaching me a lesson.
Yeah.
And we're back to having the responsibilities of a kid, but with the knowledge and the strength of being an adult.
God, yeah.
And I will wave the flag for that until I die. All the locations in it, fantastic. And also Santa turns up, so like big dub for childhood, you know what I mean? And Santa's like, you dagger, you poison, you sword, you axe. And it's like, oh Christ, Santa's a warmonger, Jesus Christ.
War Dogs, but Father
Christmas. Yeah, is Jonah Hill. That's how Jonah Hill laughs, just so you know, Roddy. Roddy's not seen War Dogs.
I have not seen that.
There's loads of there's a clip of him going down the stairs to meet some like thug, and he just starts going,
Oh, this is Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill, not Santa. Right, yeah. Okay. That would be a slightly more harrowing noise to hear on Christmas Eve, wouldn't it? Mum, listen to the roof. Pat, pat, pat. Oh, Jesus Christ!
Father Christmas is one too many again.
Get in the bed. Get in the bed. Let's not breathe at all.
It's Krampus.
It's Krampus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will flag the I will fly the flag for that film until I die.
Yeah, it's kind of mental now that you mentioned that like, obviously it's like more metaphorical and everything, but for Peter to be so calm, leading thousands into battle, and he is a child.
He's supposed to be like 14 or something.
Yeah,
tops. Yeah,
like this child is calm as anything, calm as me and you are right now. Leading a world-ending army into battle. This is a battle between Jesus, God, and I don't know who the White Witch is meant to symbolize. I guess the devil.
Yeah.
Like all of humanity, and this kid's like, just another day at work.
Yeah, and let's not forget James McAvoy, Liam Neeson, Tilda Swinton, Mr. Beaver is played by Ray Winston. Like, the big hitters are there.
What?
The big hitters are there.
Even Ray Winston, Big Man Cockney. What?
Big Man Cockney, always throws signs excitable like coffee. That's a joke that 4 people are going to get.
Oh dear. But whatever happened to the other 2 films?
So, Prince Caspian was split into 2 parts, I think.
Was it? Okay.
And again, they're pretty good.
Are they good?
They're not bad at all.
I just can't remember those at all.
It's got Simon Pegg in as Reapy Cheap, the mouse.
Oh, yeah.
Or was that in The Dawn Treader? I can't remember.
I think that's Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
And then they had The Dawn Treader with Will Poulter, which again wasn't bad.
That's the first thing I ever saw Will Poulter in, I think.
Really?
Yes.
See, he was
Maze Runner, I think, was the next thing I remember.
Maze Runner, he was also in We're the Millers and...
Yeah.
A Rizzle Kicks music video for Skip to the Good Bit. Classics. He was in I think it was called School of Comedy as a kid, and he played this guy interviewing someone who had a really tragic backstory. This other kid. It was a comedy show full of kids, and he's interviewing this other kid, and this kid goes, "Well, my dad left us when I was," and he just goes, "Oh, cry me a fucking river, Barry."
Wait, Will Poulter?
Yeah, that's like a 12-year-old. It's so good. It's such a great clip. You really need to find it if you haven't.
Oh, savage.
Yeah, but no, I wish they hadn't run out of money to keep going with the Narnia franchise. But also, like the kids were getting old.
Yes.
And obviously the books understand that and they introduce new kids and stuff. But they were slightly worried that they wouldn't land in the same way, I think, and they just thought better to not risk it, which I kind of respect.
Yeah, if only more films learn from that nowadays. You know.
Well, I think we've come up with good lists there. Let's run through them one more time.
Yes.
Just the official ones. I know you've got 7 or 8 official ones, but so my number 5 is Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
My number 5 is The Adventures of Chris Fable.
That's the one thing I'm going to take from this episode is a necessity to watch what might be the worst film I've ever seen.
It's £2.90 on eBay, so.
Oh, I'm not paying money to watch it anyway. My number 4 is the SpongeBob movie.
God, this is not a good list of films. My number 4 is Where the Wild Things Are.
Great film. Fantastic. Puts
that's
mine
good.
to shame. My number 3 is Johnny English Reborn.
Fantastic. Staying in the J theme, my number 3 is Django Unchained.
It's the D, not a J.
It sounds like it. Okay, my number 3 is Django
The
Unchained.
Django Unchained. Very good. Bizarre that it's come up in this list. I can't lie, but funny. My number 2 is The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, my number 2 is George of the Jungle / Shaun of the Dead.
Both good.
Yeah.
My number 1 is The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which if you ever want to make anyone do a game of charades and want to hate themselves, you give them that.
Oh, yes. My number 1 is Spirited Away / Happy Feet.
All good.
Yeah.
Wonderful choices. Actually, I'm lying. The worst thing to give someone if you want them to do a funny charade is The Adventures of Dick Whittington and His Cat. You can do your own imagination there. Thank you very much for listening to this slightly rambling episode that we've done very much on the cash. But I think we've come up with some good films there.
Fantastic
Very much
list of
worthwhile
films.
discussion.
Yes.
If you have any suggestions, then please do let us know. Go and download all of Roddy's music. We've got
Oh, yeah.
All I Know, we've got Manhattan, and we've got Flowers MP3 that have been all released now, and there hopefully should be some more on the way, which we're all very much looking forward to. Roddy, thank you very much for letting me into your home for this weekend and letting me record a podcast.
And drinking all my milk.
And drinking all your milk. I
It was-
didn't drink
it
an
was
ounce
fucked up.
of milk.
It
I
was
want you
fucked
all
up
to
that
know
you
this.
drank
I didn't
all
drink
that milk.
any milk. It's
was
been
crazy.
exclusively water.
I never even thought I'd get... I don't know why I bought all that milk in the first place. I didn't think I'd ever get through it.
Yeah, that's right. I texted you before. I'm like, can I have 8 gallons of milk,
Yeah,
please?
well... Yeah, no, you're welcome.
Like,
For all of it, I guess.
on that note, on that milky note,
Cool.
bye!